aid, such as they have done in the past, in order to rebuild their military capabilities, and then they will attack Israel again.
The World Health Organization saying it is witnessing a deadly surge in malnutrition-related deaths in the Gaza Strip. 100 aid agencies have warned that mass starvation is spreading across the territory. Earlier on Times Radio, John Pienaar spoke to David Miliband, the former Foreign Secretary, who's now President of the International Rescue Committee.
We are also seeing in our work extraordinary levels of need, both amongst our clients and, I want to emphasize, amongst our staff as well, because our staff are Gazans. They're mothers and fathers who've got kids, and they are deciding that they won't eat so that their kids can eat. That's the situation that we're facing. So it couldn't be more serious.
Well, Israel denies that it is responsible for the food shortages, blaming UN agencies and Hamas. Well, we're joined now by Johnathan Cornicus, who served as an officer for 24 years in the Israel Defense Forces and was an IDF spokesman. Johnathan Cornicus, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
I wonder, let's talk first of all about those statements from so many aid agencies who say now that starvation is upon us. It's not coming. It's here now. Do you accept that people are starving in Gaza?
I think that it would be accurate to say that there is shortage of food amongst certain parts of the population. And I would say that many other parts of the people who are in Gaza, specifically those affiliated with Hamas and specifically Hamas members, are not suffering from any shortage of food. On the contrary, they're even boasting that they have plenty of food. And I think that Hamas is using and weaponizing the access to food in the Gaza Strip for its political purposes. But having said that, I see the pictures, I see the media campaign ongoing. As a human being, when I see someone that appears to be starving, that is horrible to see. But I would urge people to look beyond the media campaign and to understand that the reason for this happening is a war that Hamas started and that Hamas could have ended a long, long time ago if they'd agreed to any ceasefire that has been proposed to them multiple times.
Well, there is no disputing that Hamas committed a series of war crimes in those attacks it launched on 7th of October. No one is disputing that, of course. 1,200 people killed, hostages taken, so many of those still being held inside Gaza. However, the point that you make is that Hamas don't care if people are starving. Hamas feed themselves. Well, that may be the case, but can't Israel then take a high moral ground, if you like, not stoop to their level and allow food to get into these starving, innocent children we see the pictures. You've said that you've seen them yourselves. The bones are showing through their skin. They are dying now. They are dying of starvation. Can't you help? Can't you help them? Can't you make sure that there is better distribution of food?
What's actually ironic is, it's sad, it's very sad, is that food is getting in. More than 1,000 trucks were delivered and are waiting for UN organizations. Some of them, by the way, represented by the gentleman that you played his voice, the former secretary.
David Miliband.
Yes, David Miliband and many others, and I've been debating them in media, etc. But the thing that's happening here, which is quite astonishing and very cynical, is that there's plenty of truckloads of food that have been delivered into the Gaza Strip, but UN organizations are refusing to distribute them because they don't want to cooperate with the IDF, with Israel.
Well, they say that they can't get access to get them from the border. And 28.
That is incorrect.
Well, the numbers.
That is simply not correct. I would opine that is a political and very cynical abuse of their powers. And I would say that they, while doing so, are actually showing that they're not really about caring about Palestinians, whether they're malnourished or not. It's more of a political game at the expense of Palestinians.
Well,
and I think that's very sad.
You know, we can trade numbers, but I mean, the official figures that we have seen quoted are that 28 lorry loads of aid are reaching 2 million people every day. I mean, there's no way that that's enough, is it? Can you not sort out this situation where the food is not getting to the people that need it? And
Yeah.
I mean, while we're talking about food distribution, the fact that people are being killed every day as they go to the food handout areas. What situation is that people are being shot, innocent people shot as they go to get some food?
Yeah, I'll give you a number that is quite important. Almost 90 million meals have been distributed by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, an NGO supported by Israel. It's an American NGO, but it's supported and facilitated by Israel. And they have handed out more than 90 million meals in less than 4.5 weeks. That is not nothing. That is a substantial amount of food that is being distributed without political strings, without Hamas power, without any corrupt UN middlemen that are in the way, and without greasing the machine of the terror organization Hamas that used to govern the Gaza Strip. Now, everything happening now is part of a media campaign that is intended to keep Hamas in power and to preserve the ecosystem that exists in Gaza or existed in Gaza before October 7th.
I think I'd like to move on from that argument, because we, as a media in the UK and across the world, journalists would love to get into Gaza to be able to report properly on it, and we're not allowed to. So we are going on what we hear from the aid agencies and from other bodies.
What you're being fed. And there's a campaign ongoing, and the UN and the so-called aid organizations are on a media offensive because they see that the Israeli-American alternative to their business model, and it is a business model, is a threat to the current situation.
But you're not
disputing. They don't like it.
You're not disputing, are you, that there are people being killed when they go to food distribution centres? So can I just ask you, what do you think is the military point for killing desperate people who are standing and queuing for food? David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary here, says he's appalled, sickened at the plight of the Palestinian people, innocent children holding out their hands for food who are shot and killed in the way we've seen. And that's the Foreign Secretary.
Yes, and the sentence missing from that emotional statement would be to hold Hamas accountable for what they have done to the population and what they've done to Israel, and for the fact that they still refuse to end the war. But I will say there's absolutely no military advantage by shooting at anybody queuing up for food. If it has happened, and I agree that there are quite convincing reports of Palestinian casualties that have indeed happened by IDF fire. If it has happened, it is a response by soldiers on the ground that are in front of thousands of Palestinians who are being rushed from behind in order to create pressure at those distribution centers. And again, I go back to the strategic situation here. Hamas desperately wants the Gaza Humanitarian Fund to be considered a failure and for that to be dangerous, because the Gaza Humanitarian Fund is a threat to Hamas. Hamas without humanitarian aid cannot rule the Gaza Strip. They will be stripped of their influence and their leverage over the population. That is why they are fighting tooth and nail, including inciting violence and trying to provoke stampedes at the distribution centers, including the media offensive that we're seeing now. That's the strategic picture happening, and that's why I refer to a media campaign. I wasn't finding any blame to you, but I was saying that this is what's happening because the future, the control over the Gaza Strip is at stake here, and Hamas is fighting because they are getting more and more desperate.
Well, I take your point about that. We would love to get into verify some of those statements that you've just made there ourselves. Can I just ask you one? We're running out of time. I'm very sorry about that, Johnathan Cornicus, because it's really good to talk to you and hear your response. And I know there'll be plenty of people who challenge what you say, but at least you are willing to come and try to answer some of our questions.
More than happy to answer questions from your viewers as well.
So what hopes of a ceasefire? There are talks, we know, going on in Doha. Hamas say they will give the hostages back if Israel leaves Gaza. But Israel won't do that. So we are in stalemate.
No, that's not really
aren't we?
accurate. That I'm afraid that isn't accurate what you've said.
Okay.
The what's being discussed is, and what hopefully will happen, and according to Reuters and Palestinian news agencies, Hamas has returned an answer to the negotiators just minutes ago, half an hour ago, and we're waiting to see the details of it. But what currently is being negotiated is the return of 10 live Israeli hostages out of 20 that are in Hamas captivity, and 18 out of the dead Israeli hostages. That is for a 60-day of ceasefire. But as much as I would want a ceasefire, and most people in Israel, and I'm sure many people in Gaza would want a ceasefire, that would be a temporary situation, because from an Israeli perspective, as long as Hamas is in Gaza, as long as they exist in Gaza, then the conflict isn't over, and Israel will not be safe, because we know that they will rebuild, they will use humanitarian aid, such as they have done in the past, in order to rebuild their military capabilities, and then they will attack Israel again. And it's not me saying it, that is Hamas seniors. And a very important kind of word of reference here is an Arabic word called hudna. Hudna means temporary ceasefire that you can agree to in a time of disadvantage, so that you can regain your strength and then go back to fighting against your enemy. And if you listen to Arabic language reports, they are not using a modern judicial term for ceasefire. They are saying we want a hudna. Hudna means we will go back to fighting.
Well, thank you. What can I just say to you, though? I mean, as somebody who has worked within the IDF, you've spoken for them, you've served in the forces. You know...
I've also fought in Gaza. I've also fought against Hamas and Hezbollah.
And, you know, look, ordinary Israelis don't like being seen as a pariah state. You know how much sympathy there was for Israel after what happened on the 7th of October. But you've got ordinary Israelis now who are saying, look, let's get those surviving hostages back. Let's get a deal to get them back. And if pulling out of Gaza is required, so be it. You know, you're losing international sympathy with the way that you're handling this. And, you know, a lot of Israeli citizens are really unhappy about that.
Yeah, I'm afraid if it was a battle of popularity, Israel would have been vanquished many, many years ago. Israel is here not because it's popular. Israel is here and flourishes and continues to exist not because our neighbors like us, and not because the nations of the world always love us. We are here because this is our homeland. Do I wish for it to be different? Definitely. Do I wish that democracies around the world, instead of supporting Hamas, would support Israel?
Well, they're not supporting Hamas.
Yes.
Not necessarily. Well, anyway, look, we've got to leave it there. I think I will end with a bit of contention there against what you say. But Johnathan Cornicus, former IDF spokesman, thank you very much for talking to us.